Start here was, I think the most progress was made in the last 20 years in terms of weather forecasting. A lot has been said about it today, and for me as a farmer who works with 60, 70 people at a time, managing manpower is of utmost importance. And a weather forecast that tells me, as Dirk said, it's going to start raining at 7 o'clock or at 10 o'clock, I can tell my people to stay at home today, or you have to get this off by 11 o'clock. And it's so accurate, it's actually scary. It really is. And why the Norwegians get it right and the South Africans don't, I don't know. But why often is the best to use wind guru if you want to look at the wind patterns, when to spray. I mean, you can plan ahead if you have to spray and so on. So that for me, if I look back in the 20 years I farmed, has made the most impact. And it's free. That's the best part of it. I'm still involved in a weather station trust where we 10 years ago, 15 years ago, paid somebody good money to get this type of information that we get free nowadays. The next one, obviously we are irrigation farmers. We're actually glad we don't get that much rain in summer because now we can control it. So irrigation scheduling is another technology that we embrace. When I started farming, came from university and I started farming, I immediately knew that going out and kicking the soil and deciding to irrigate or not, or looking at the weeds, and it wasn't good enough for me. So I got a consultant in, cost me a lot of money back there in 1993. They came with this probe, did 4 blocks, and after 2 years I decided to purchase my own little nuclear device, which I had until recently, and neutron moisture probe. And I wrote my own software for it, used it, until recently changed over to continuous logging, which is the graph you can see here. It's software that is produced from one of the companies. And what it does, it actually shows me if I irrigate, I can see how deep I irrigate. Did I give too much? Did I give too little? Does it go into my root zone? Does it go below it? Do I sort of wash out my nutrients? So this for me is also, I spend a lot of time in front of this graphs every day. And so that is something that we also use a lot. The neutron probe problem is that you took a measurement and it was like one instant measurement. If you had to go out again in a day's time, and we didn't get this continuous graph. The next, obviously, follows out of that is irrigation control. We automated our whole irrigation, so we can irrigate day and night, Saturdays, Sundays. We can wake up at night and start the irrigation. It shows me where it flows and so on. That is crucial for me. I started out when I was young, at 10 o'clock, I'd get on the motorbike, go out and change over taps and so on. It doesn't do it anymore. Next, pests and diseases. I bring it here in the weather, under the header of weather, because weather does influence certain diseases. I mean, in vine grapes, you've got downy mildew, which is driven by rain. Even the apple guys, the scab and stuff. So nowadays you get, you get it a long time ago, the forecasting of diseases. And I want to stand still here, but in 1997 we had a big downy mildew here in the wine grapes, and one of the agrochemical companies sought advice to spend a small bit of the money they made that year in sales of chemicals and plowed it back into a weather station system we put up to try and predict future outbreaks and help us to manage it. So a lot of money was spent in putting up 7 or 8 weather stations, and I think the Agricultural Research Council, one of the departments, managed it for us, and we got a report every day of historical weather data, and also they ran a model on it telling us yesterday it was a good chance for a downy mildew infection. Problem with that historical data is, yes, I know it, I knew it rained and there was an infection, but I can't do anything about it anymore because you have to spray before the time. You can't spray after the time, it doesn't help. So all that research, all the technology that was driven into that for me was actually worth nothing. Nowadays with the weather forecasts we have, I mean, wire goes 7, 8, 9 days ahead. If you know there's rain coming, you spray, finish and cloud. You don't need these prediction models, and there's a lot of guys out there who try to sell you these programs, web-based and whatever, going through Holland and driven from there. If you know your diseases and you've got the weather forecast, you don't need that as such. And it's all it needs to pay for itself. I brought in winter chill and rest breaking. I mean, we're working with fruit trees that have various degrees of chill units they need, and there is technology to, first of all, measure the units that we get each year, and from that data you can decide whether you're going to spray this product or that product to help the tree to break the rest. There is overhead irrigation at some places that they use to also try and influence the crop and manipulate the crop. And obviously I think there's a lot of maybe research going into that as well, that also the type of trees we plant. Obviously technology for me is also whether are we planting the right cultivars, the right rootstocks for the amount of cold we get. Then there's another technology that I think is growing and will grow further is to try and take the weather, the gamble out of farming. Cover up your farm, protect it against hail, protect it against wind and sunburn in some instances. Build your own hothouse on a bigger scale. And if you drive through Paarl towards the Riebeek Valley and Grabouw and so on, everybody's experimenting with it. Netting is going up more and more. This photograph was taken in Germany. That's a cherry orchard that was covered with plastic. And the farmer there said, yeah, he's just waiting for it to start raining, because then the prices will go up, because the other farmers' cherries will burst and he can at last get a decent money for his crop, because he's covered. And I was looking especially at this as well for our early stone fruit, but after taking our southeaster into consideration and the cost involved, I'd rather plant another hectare and take my chances. But netting as such, permanent netting, is also on my cards. Climate change, yeah, what can you say? Carbon calculator, we are looking at renewable energy as well. I just we did some measurements last Friday to see whether we could put up panels and all that. We'll see if it makes economic sense. Obviously, everybody's trying to save costs, save on fuel, save on cardboard. Well, we heard that cardboard and nitrogen is also part of the carbon emissions. So in trying to improve our bottom line, we are also saving on inputs, and that will also help the climate change. The next header I'm going to talk about is efficiency. I mean, we are working with a lot more people than the grain farmers are working with. So efficiencies, efficient use of our labor is essential to survival here. And then the background, you can see one of my projects, which might not make so much economical sense at this stage, but more later. First of efficiency, first header or the subheader here is trellising systems. And you would ask me, what does that have to do with technology? It's not like a button you can push or data or anything. But for me, that is technology, that is progress, that is what we need on the way forward. On the left, you can see a newly trained orchard. You might, if you look very sharp, you might see a couple of plants hanging there. On the right is more like a bushy, open ways type of orchard. It's more three-dimensional. It's for our labor to get into, to pick the fruit. It's more difficult to reach the fruit. In winter, when you're pruning, it's very difficult to make decisions on what to prune and so on. Whereas on the left, you've got it's trellised like a vineyard, and it makes it's more like a two-dimensional system. It's much easier. You can give the guy or the girl the recipe, and she just moves on. And we really need that. And before we're not changing our trellising systems, a lot of the newer technologies that will help us drive efficiencies won't be applicable to our kind of farming. There we are at the platforms. There was research done on that, which was funded by Hordcrow. I couldn't wait for the results. I said, small boys, small toys, big boys, well, men have got big toys. I got my own platforms, and we're learning a lot. We're really learning a lot, and as a farm, the trellising is changing. We are using them more and more, and what it actually does, it helps the laborer to do that what he can longer during the day. He doesn't have to get off the ladder and move the ladder and get up the ladder again. He can pick fruit because we developed robots that can pick fruit, but it's going to take another 20 or 30 years. And we as humans, we are just ideal doing that, to making decisions and controlling our motions in our hands and placing the fruit softly into a tray. When it comes to shifting trays and carrying trays for 100 meters and putting it on a pallet, that's where we need to start working on the efficiencies. We can do that. Technology. We can implement technology to do that, and that's what these little machines do. There's also a lot of electronics in there. So that is one of my projects that I'm busy with, and keeps me going. Next one is assisted pruning. It's not a robot that's pruning, but it's humans that use maybe an electric pruner or pneumatic pruner to just help them with those cuts, that it alleviates the strain on the hands. You're not as tired in the evening, you can go on for longer. And so that is also technology we employ. I wouldn't say that it pays for itself, but I think eventually it will, because the labor is, what we do now is we use less labor, but we use only the best ones to do the pruning. And we also found that, and that's true for a lot of technology, it doesn't work everywhere. The electric pruners work on where you make big cuts, but where you do a lot of small, fine pruning, don't use the electric shear. It's going to waste your time. And we find that there's a lot of things we try and implement. Technology per se doesn't say it will be better. There are horses for courses, and if you see that it doesn't work, go back to the old way of doing it. On the right, you can see it's a mechanical harvesting system that's got a compressor on. They're using pneumatic shears, moving through the orchard in a team, because they have to stay within the reach of that compressor. They're connected with pipes. Next point here is mechanical blossom thinning. I have no first-hand experience of that, but the principle behind that is, and we saw it this year as well, we had a very good fruit set here, and the tree sets a lot of fruit initially, and it takes 4 or 5 weeks before you can manually thin the little fruitlets. And in that 4 or 5 weeks, a lot of energy is spent on the fruit that you need to drop, because you need to thin your tree to a certain number to reach your targets. And the idea of blossom thinning is to reduce the amount of fruit earlier, that energy that would have been wasted goes to the fruit that needs to stay behind. The latest results, which I heard from a farmer in Babl, is that they're actually getting the results are totally opposite from what they thought, is because you reduce the fruit, that fruit that is left sits and it doesn't drop naturally. So there's a lot of work to be done, but that is also a equipment that can save you a lot of time, and it's not that it necessarily takes away labor, because you wouldn't have done the blossom thinning with labor anyway. You would have just left it and waited for it to drop. So yeah. Next one. Yeah. I don't know who to credit with this quote, but somebody overheard it. Once you start planting anything in a row, it will get sick. I think we drove past a plantation of fynbos in the Karoo, and then a friend said, yeah, watch it, it will die. So, in pests and diseases, I mean, next to irrigation and obviously caring for your fruit is a big thing we need to do, protect our crop. And I picked that up on the internet. It's not locally available, but it just indicates what can be done. I mean, you need to monitor your pests, and this thing apparently calls in and tells and it logs it automatically, and eventually you get a map of track counts, which you put also on a GIS system, and you can see your farm, where the problem areas are, and especially if you've got a big farm, it helps a lot in identifying hotspots and all that. I mean, I'm a small farmer, I guard myself and look at it, but it is possible, and I think every big apple farm above 100 hectares should have a system like that. If they don't, I don't know. But I haven't, but it is possible, and from what we've heard this morning, I think it will be more and more on the cards. That I'm going to stand still at this point here at the application of our plant protection products. And it's not chemicals, it's plant protection products. I believe that there is a lot of advanced, well, we have to learn a lot there, and we can improve a lot on what we are doing. I mean, if you look at the top picture there, it's like they're humidifying the air. I mean, they're putting out 2,500 liters of mixture there, and how much reaches the target? How much of that is on target? And I think maybe they needed to fumigate the bins that are standing there, I don't know. For me, I'm actually at this stage, I'm looking at, and obviously as our trellising changes, the design of our sprays need to change. So if you look at the bottom picture, that's the technology they developed overseas, and they're fine-tuning overseas. You put you move closer to the target. You don't have the round spray anymore, where you need to travel like 2-3 meters from the nozzle to the target. Your nozzles shift upwards, and your airflow is more directed onto the crop. And the other thing is, with this spray, you start reducing your airspeed, so that you've got just enough air to penetrate the canopy and not more, that you don't sort of get this plume of spray mist that is actually wasted. And I've gone so far as to import a sprayer myself, so I've got one of these on the way here, and to help me, to assist me in managing this thing. Because if you've ever calibrated a sprayer, you would know that the formula of doing that can be quite complex, and that's not the accurate formula, but it's more or less in that direction. Because you start out with speed and tractor revolutions influencing the pressure, and now and that's only for the delivery of mixture. If you now want to reduce the air in your fan, you're going to reduce your revs of the tractor. That will now again influence the pressure and all that. So I decided while we edit, we'll just add a computer that sort of handles care of all that. And I think Dirk has that, you would be using that for a long time, but in the orchard sprayers, it's new. We don't have that. I mean, the tractor is set up by the chemical rep at the beginning of the year, and you just go on. And for me, that's not on anymore. We use a lot of small plots. We have maybe 2 to 3 hectares of a variety, and you only spray that. And if you mix a tank and you need maybe 1,300 liters, and you go out and you spray, and the guy's 2 rows short, he needs to come back and make up another 100 liters of mixture. And I don't have time for that. So hopefully the new technology, this tank level sensor, flow meters and everything will help me in getting a more accurate, that you make up your spray mixture according to what you need and not more and not less. So that for me is now my new project, and I think we as crop farmers can improve a lot in the application of agrochemicals. There's obviously also a risk involved with more stringent MRLs, like the maximum residues of chemicals you're allowed on your fruit. You can't make errors anymore, so we need to work on this. SIT is another technology that has been developed globally, but is also used in South Africa for the combat of fruit flies. It works very well in the big areas. Basically, you're sterilizing male flies and you're flooding the population with them, and they will not have any offspring, and it will sort of reduce the pest. In our area in Paarl, it doesn't work because we are small, interspersed with other farms, guavas, wine grapes, and urbanization. So it doesn't work with us, it works in the bigger areas. But that is a technology that actually needs government assistance, because of you need to eradicate hosts to the pest in gardens and everything, and you need to spray with aeroplanes, and you need legislation and everything to cover that. So in in the States and in Mexico and whatever, I think they're far-reaching governmental legislation to drive this. And obviously we know where we stand as our government in South Africa, so I think they could do with a little bit more assistance of national government. Yeah, there's an example of my own GIS system I employ. I get it again free of charge. And there is actually a lot to learn out of satellite data. I mean, you can look at the farm, you can see all the patches, and even, I think, let's see if I can find this pointer here. No, I can't. There it is. If you look here, there's like we put irrigation through there 3 or 4 years ago, and now in a certain stage, you can see these lines. And I actually want to go back and see what's going on there. It's been 4 years, and in a previous image I couldn't see them, and it was a very dry season, so maybe I can learn something out of that. And if I go on, I zoomed in a little bit, and there's a block that we planted that's nearly a year old, and we had to count, well, I sent somebody out to count the trees that were dead so they can order some trees to replant, and I later saw that I didn't need that. I could go here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could have counted it from the internet. Some challenges that I want to point out, and it was put in especially for Minister Windy, but he's not here anymore. Too much data. And we're talking about big data, but for me, I find that there could be too much data as well, especially if you want to crunch it yourself. So too much data is not a good thing for me. You need to understand the underlying process of what you're doing. If I want to take the example of the continuous logging, if you do not understand what these graphs mean, and you're not going to pick up if there's something wrong outside, say one of the emitters has blocked and the sprinkler next to the probe is blocked, and you sort of go on irrigating. If you don't pick it up, and if you sort of, the problem is the technology will you start relying on it in such a way that you don't go out and recalibrate your what you see on the screen anymore, and it can really lead you into destruction. So you need to understand the underlying process in the technology, and so that you can understand what you're seeing and interpret the results, and also pick up if you're steering off course. I think I've covered that one. And I mentioned it before, the investment must pay for itself. To purchase technology or to subscribe to technology just for the matter of it is not on. It has to pay for itself. We're a business, and we want to survive and be around the next year. Economies of scale, obviously, a small farmer is not able to purchase certain technology. A big farm might be able to do it. So, and the trend is towards bigger farms, obviously, because of the technology. I don't know where that leaves our government with the purpose of deploying small-scale farmers. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard to combine the two, because without technology you're not viable. So that for me is one of the things. And I don't know if I've got it on here, but some of the web-based, I mean, we heard a lot of web-based applications and so on. And I mean, if you're lucky, you find yourself on the other end of 3 or 4 kilometers of telecom copper wire. I'm unlucky, mine has been stolen, it's on its way to China. So if you're on that, on a slow ADSL line, and you go onto these, I played around with Fruit Loop twice already, and I left it because it takes for ages to load, and you click on something, and it takes time to change over and bring up the new screen, and you're not used to that, and it's frustrating, and so beware if you try and roll out this thing. If you're sitting in your Wi-Fi emerged office and you push the button and it pops up immediately, that's not going to happen out there in the field, and the frustration factor will creep in, and it will eventually lead to guys not using it.